Okay, thanks again everyone for dialing in today for our latest webinar on the $75 million package for performing arts and live music. Before we kick off, I'd like to just give an acknowledgement of country. So Create New South Wales acknowledges the Aboriginal people across the state of New South Wales and their continued connections and practices to their lands, waters and cultures. We pay respects to elders past, present and future and the role Aboriginal artists play in keeping their cultures alive. Bit of housekeeping. So as I said at the start here, these webinars tend to work best if everyone can just remember to keep themselves on mute, and if their videos can be muted as well, that'd be great. Worth noting, this webinar is being recorded. For those who can't join us, we'll put the webinar up on the Create New South Wales YouTube channel later today, so you can share that with anyone who wasn't able to jump on today. On the tech side, for a better viewing experience during this webinar, please click on the View Everyone tab in the top center of the screen and select View Active Cameras. Additionally, it's worth noting at the top here, while I've asked everyone to be on mute, there'll be a specific Q&A section to this webinar towards the end. So if you have any questions that aren't answered throughout the process of the webinar, please type them into the chat box there. And then during the Q&A section, I'll actually read as many of those questions as possible to our other presenter, who will answer them that way. So the chat box is just that little speech bubble in the bottom right. So you'll hear from me, obviously, today as the moderator, and Sue Proctor, both from Create New South Wales. And again, we're here to discuss the $75 million support package for the live music and performing arts sector. So if performing arts, as I said, this one's specific to live music. If performing arts is more relevant to you, please check out our YouTube channel. We recorded a webinar earlier today for the performing arts sector, and you can view that there. So I'll hand over to Sue Proctor now, who's going to take you through an overview of the package itself, how it's going to work, eligibility, and she'll be able to answer all of your questions. Thanks, Sue.
Thanks, Simon. Just had a tech problem for a second. I just lost all my screen, so it was a near disaster. But I'm here. I also want to echo Simon's words and acknowledge that I'm sitting on beautiful Gadigal land and acknowledge the elders past, present and emerging. So welcome everyone. This is the second webinar we've done today, so we've just gone back to back. So hopefully I'll be able to articulate the package in a way that is understandable and helpful for the live music sector. As Simon said, we split it in two because the needs and the focus of each of the sectors are slightly different, but if you are, from the performing arts sector on this webinar, I'll just make sure that I'm including, some of the issues that might be facing you as well, but just in a shortened way. So just to kick off, I thought what I might do is just do a little bit of an explanation of how we've got to this package and how we've designed it. So obviously we've been through nearly close to 18 months, 14 months worth of COVID impact on our sector. What is clear is that the three most impacted sectors from COVID have been tourism, hospitality and the arts. Obviously, as far as live music is concerned, you've got both that hospitality and the arts factor on restricting your businesses. When the pandemic first hit, we concentrated on a $50 million rescue and restart package, which was very much focused towards the normal not-for-profit area that Create New South Wales has a lot of experience in dealing with. We looked at companies' financial sustainability, and we looked at rescuing, at stabilising about 27 organisations. We ended up needing to give some support to make sure that they didn't go under. once we'd got those companies stabilised, Treasury was very keen on the recovery phase, the restart phase of the economy. So what we did was we provided quite significant support to our funded organisations, because they were best positioned to be able to provide employment opportunities for performing artists and workers, to develop new work, and to support regional New South Wales where possible. So it was very much focused on giving money to organisations that already had the infrastructure in place to be able to employ people and to get more shows up and running. So it was very much a performing arts focused package. During that time, we became aware that there was another group of people who wouldn't normally interact with the New South Wales Government for funding support. They were major festivals, independent cinemas, and the live music sector. The independent cinemas was supported at a federal level. We're still looking at ways of supporting major festivals, but there became a very clear and obvious need to be supporting live music venues, because they were obviously in extreme financial distress. So I worked with the Live Music Office, Music New South Wales, APRA AMCOS, and coming out of Minister Ayres' office to develop the $24 million live music support package. What we did there is really worked hard to try and identify the live music venues that exist for the delivery of live music, not so much the fantastic pubs and clubs that do have live music as part of their business model, but they don't only open their doors to deliver live music. So we were able to define the different venues in terms of tier 1, tier 2, tier 3 and tier 4 organisations, and were able to provide funding from tier 1 through to tier 3. So the tier 1 organisations were the ones that purely exist to do live music, like the Enmore, like the Lansdowne, those kinds of venues. The tier 2 had elements of a very, very heavy reliance on live music performance, but may have had some other activities that they do as well. So when the Delta variant started to hit a month or so ago, we immediately started to model and think about, well, what's going to happen to the performing arts sector as a result of this latest outbreak. What we'd learnt from last year is that really for the funded organisations generally, there's kind of three main areas that they generate income from. There's the government support, there's the private sector, and then there's the box office or self-generated income that's received. And we found that really in the first part of the pandemic, the government support and the private sector income remained pretty solid and pretty stable. So really we became very focused on what was going to happen to the box office income. So obviously organisations heavily reliant on box office when they're planning their year or planning their schedule are making assumptions about how much money they're going to generate out of box office. With the public health order closing, I'm telling you guys anything you don't know. Once the public health order required those doors to be shut and for those performances not to go ahead, then that money just disappeared. So when we were asked to put a package together, and just to give you a little bit of background as well, with the $50 million package, we pretty well had the parameters designed by the first or second week of March, and it was announced on the 31st of May. So it took some time to get it through the various levels of government and get that approved. With this package, I was called on the Saturday by Treasury and it was announced on the Monday. So really, we got the bones of it together very quickly, and then we've spent the last 10 days or so kind of really making sure that we've got the parameters right and that we will be able to deliver a package that will have the widest benefit for the most amount of people. So, yeah, so when we were approached to come up with a package, it was very clear that we wanted to make sure that the live music venues were involved in that package as well. We'll also have an element where we're supporting the big commercial theatres as well. So it's a package that does have, you know, Hamilton in it, as well as some of the smallest organisations like the Old Fits or something like that, with a venue size of less than 60. So it's really an incredibly broad package designed to provide, hopefully, a fairly easy, understandable and transparent way that we're providing the money. It will appear a little bit complicated when I start describing it to you, because it's not, you won't see all the pieces of how it comes together. But once you start filling out the application form, you'll see the logic of what we're trying to achieve here. So, so the primary aim, so when Treasury came and spoke to us, I mean, really they're very clear that the performing arts, in the past, up until COVID hit, we were probably thought of as the, you know, icing on the cake, or nice to have, but not really essential. But when COVID hit and people were required to stay at home, it became very apparent that people can survive on just streaming Netflix and ordering Uber Eats and shopping online. And when the health orders relaxed, people were very reluctant to start to return to the town centres and city centres. And it became apparent that performing arts is a real draw card to bring people back and to re-engage with the economy. So, so this package is very much focused on economic recovery and stimulus. It is, of course, the performing arts sector has incredible importance from a community-based or from an artistic development perspective. But really, this is about making sure that the money goes to the organisations who can ensure that employment of performing arts and live musicians will continue, but also that the venues and that the bands and all of those artists will be ready to perform once the health orders allow it. So that's kind of the background of how we started with the design of the package. At this stage, just moving to the next slide, Ash, at this stage we're looking at opening the applications on Friday. There's no particular closing date at this stage. We will be covering a period from the 26th of June, so we will be going backwards in time to cover for any lost shows or any gigs that you guys might have experienced. And at the moment, the money covers us out to the 30th of September based on the current modelling we've got. So again, not needing to tell you guys, working in an environment of an uncertain public health order environment where audience numbers could be restricted to 25%, they could be allowed to come, 100% could come, and then suddenly you might be in lockdown for the next 3 weeks while a transmission is brought back under control. We're trying to start developing a package that's easy to understand, it's easy to calculate, and as I said, transparent across the sector, so that everyone's got a good understanding of what everybody else is getting. So so as far as working out who is eligible for this package, at first, when I was trying to work through the concept of box office and this gap of income that would result as would come through as a result of the closures, it became apparent that really we needed to focus on the performance and a venue. It doesn't mean that the venue is going to get the money or all the money, but it just means that it actually locks the package down to a moment in time and a certain place, and that way we can identify where that loss crystallized as a result of the lockdown. Having conversations, we've had pretty extensive conversations across the sector, both the live music sector and the performing arts sector, to stress test how we can actually develop it so that it ensures that the money gets across as wide as possible and to the most amount of people. We've realised that there really, when a performance is staged, there's really a number of people who could be potentially eligible for this package. We don't have the capability or the administrative grunt to be able to deal with every single potentially eligible party in a performance. So what we're going to do is ask for every performance that any of the potentially eligible parties agree to who's going to be the primary applicant. And they're the people who are going to put in the application to us, and we'll assess it and we'll pay the money to them. But as part of that process, the primary applicant will need to sign a statutory declaration to say, number one, that all related parties have agreed that they're the primary applicant, and number two, that all parties have agreed to the way in which the payment that we're providing is to be distributed amongst those eligible parties. So we cannot get into contractual disputes between different people, but what we want to do is encourage a smooth and easy way to apply for the money and to get that money out as quickly as possible. If agreement can't be reached, we won't pay. So it's really incumbent on you guys to sit down, if you're a promoter or if you're an agent or if you're a venue, to sit down and go, okay, with this performance at this time, the agreement was we were going to split the box office this way, or that you were going to pay us a certain fee based on, getting X amount of box office. For you to nut that out, work out who's going to apply, and then agree to how that payment is going to go through. So as far as the eligibility is concerned, you must be one of the following. You're either going to be an eligible venue, or you're going to be a producer of an eligible performance that's been scheduled at one of the eligible venues, or you're a promoter of an eligible performance scheduled to perform at one of the eligible venues. So it sounds a bit complicated, but once you actually shake it out, it does make sense. We were hoping to get the guidelines out before we did these webinars. They're very close to coming through. And I was hoping that might have been them texting to say that it's released. But what we've got is we've got a list in the guidelines of every single eligible venue. So you'll be able to look at the list, check to see whether your venue's there. And if it is, then you'll be able to put in an application, or if you're a promoter or an agent of someone who performed at that venue, you'll be able to work with the eligible parties to work out who's got to put that application in. We will have a capacity that we may have missed a venue that should have been there, and we will have a capacity for you guys to put in an application to say that you should be considered as an eligible venue for whatever, for the reasons that you decide to state. The way that we picked the eligible venues, so for you guys, it's essentially the tier 1 and tier 2 venues that receive funding out of the live music package, but also we basically went onto the website of all of your venues, and we were looking for venues that were actively promoting and actively selling tickets into the future, just to make sure that we were grabbing the right right venues who were really pushing the sales of their bands and musicians. There are a number of venues that did receive funding under the tier 1 and tier 2 who were who were having live music, but it was free. It was there was no cover charge, no ticketing related to that performance. So those kind of performances aren't eligible for this package. So really, we're looking at when you guys made a business decision to stage XYZ band, you made commercial kind of decisions that if it was free, you won't have been impacted. Well, you will be impacted by the closures because your bar and your restaurant won't be opened, but that's not part of this package. That'll be part of the more general small business package. But if you're a venue that has a door charge, you've got an eligible ticketing system, so you have to demonstrate that you're properly collecting ticket revenue, and it's going through a recognised ticketing program. And we've got quite an extensive list. And again, if there's something missing on that list, come and talk to us, and we'll just check to make sure that it's at the kind of standard that we're after. So if you can demonstrate you're selling tickets and you've been impacted by shows having to be cancelled, then you will be eligible for this package. Okay, so the way the package is going to work, so next slide, thank you, is basically what we're trying to focus on is average ticket price, venue capacity, and then we will pay an agreed percentage if you've been impacted by the public health order. So for those impacted at the moment in Greater Sydney, that your venue is closed, you're being defined as a type C venue. So you can see the percentages there on the screen of what we'll be paying under different scenarios. So if you're under lockdown at the moment, from the 26th of June, and you can demonstrate that you had a show that's been postponed or cancelled as a result of the public health order, so that will go back to you showing us marketing material and demonstration of ticket sales, and this is why we need a ticketing system so we can see that it was in the public arena to sell. Then we will pay you 30% of your capacity times your average ticket price to compensate you for that show that's been cancelled. The amounts that we're paying in the shutdown scenario is a little less than what we're paying the performing arts, the theatre venues, primarily because the costs that are involved in putting a show on with staging and all of that kind of stuff is a little heavier. But what you'll see is once we come out of the shutdown scenario and you're under restricted capacity, we're paying at a higher rate because if you've got to open in the 1 in 4 square metre rule, or 25%, we will be paying you 50% of your capacity, or more correctly, the total number of tickets that you had on sale. So if you've got a venue that you can really only have 100 people come to a live music performance because you've got a bar in the corner, we'll be paying it at that 100, not necessarily if you're allowed to have 200 people in the venue at any one time. So we'll be looking quite closely at your venue capacity. For those that went through the live music support package, you actually declared how much of the space was allocated towards live music in that application, and we're looking at that information as far as this one's concerned. But we'll talk to you and make sure that we've got the right benchmark for your venue. So what we're trying to, so these dates that we've got here, I haven't got any crystal ball about what's going to happen with the public health orders and what's going to happen with the transmission. At the moment, our shutdown is till the 31st of July. You can see that I've got the maximum 6 weeks support going out to the 7th of August. I don't have any visibility that the lockdown is going to be extended. I'm just modelling on what could be a likely situation to give you guys an indication of how the package is going to move in terms of the public health order. So basically we'll pay up to 6 weeks of support at a 30% rate. And then after that, so say if the lockdown, God forbid, extends for 3 months, we'll be paying a further 7 weeks at that lower 15% rate. So you'll need to manage your cash flow because it costs a little bit more to ramp up and get things back going again. You'll need to self-manage your cash flow, knowing that there'll be those 2 levels depending on the length of the public health order. But what we might find is after the 31st of July, fingers crossed, we're out of shutdown, so you'll only get 5 weeks at that 30%. We go into an open but restricted capacity level, and then you'll be given a 50% compensation because you'll only be able to sell 25% of your ticket. And then as we step out of that and we go to 50%, we'll subsidise, we'll provide a 25%. And then if there's a 75% restriction, we'll provide you a small 5% compensation on that. So the purpose of this package is to give you confidence that if something goes, if the transmission of the virus continues to cause restrictions on you being able to do your business, that you have a clear calculation that you will be able to bank on, that we will be able to that we will be paying that money as those performances are postponed or cancelled. The package only goes to the 30th of September at the moment. Clearly, what I would like to do is to show Treasury that this is a successful way for us to manage the uncertainty for the performing arts sector, that it's working, and to be able to get this extended out until we reach the level of vaccination that we need to actually stabilise the sector. But at the moment, it only goes to the 30th of September. When you put your application in, we will be asking for a schedule of all your performances that you've got planned, and we'd like you to pull that out to the 31st of December, so that I can take that back to Treasury and go, look, this is the kind of activity that's being planned over the coming months. So that's it. Was there another slide, Ash? I can't remember. Or is it questions? Yes, questions. That's what I want. That's kind of it in a nutshell. But I think the best way for me to kind of explain it is to respond to your questions and try and explain how it's all going to come together.
Thanks, Sue. That was very comprehensive. I think you actually answered a couple of the questions that were coming through with your overview. Just a point to note, we'll do our best to answer all of your questions during this. We're also going to be putting up a comprehensive FAQ document on the website as soon as the guidelines and applications open. In addition to that, if you have any questions or queries that fall outside of that, I'll share our contact details at the end of this webinar, and feel free to reach out to Sue and I. So Sue, as I said, you've sort of answered a few of the questions there. If anyone else has any questions, feel free to type them in now. Question here from Tara, it's a good one. What if the venue is owned by a community group, so it might not fit into those B, A or C type venues, for example, a chamber of commerce?
So what we've done as far as the identifying the venues, so I've primarily focused on the live music venues, because we've kind of channeled it towards this to this cohort. But we've been talking with the Performing Arts Centre Association and other regional organisations to identify significant venues that might be out in regional New South Wales. So if it's a community owned or a chamber of commerce, it's really a case of looking on the list once it comes out, focus on the type B, because they're the local government and university owned venues that we've identified as being eligible or significant organisations. If the venue's not there and you feel that it should be, you'll have the capacity to come through and apply and for consideration to bring that on as an eligible venue. When you do that application, the things that we will be looking at are, you know, the capacity for that venue to provide employment opportunities for performing arts workers and related arts workers. It will be the degree to which that venue markets and sells tickets, so that's an important element. And then the most important will be the degree to which the venue delivers economic stimulus to its town centre or city centre. So with the live music, what is happening is there's quite a lot of the venues that we've allocated that will be focused around, you know, Sydney, Wollongong, Newcastle, and as I said, as far as those venues are concerned, you guys have already gone through a process with the live music support package. But if there's other venues, if they meet that kind of benchmark of providing economic stimulus or economic support to the regional centre, then we'll certainly consider it.
Thanks, Sue. The questions are coming through thick and fast now, so I'll get through them. What about door takings? For example, 100 pre-ticket sales, and then you might have 80 tickets sold on the night at the door.
That's a good question. So you will need to have it going through a formal ticket system in order for us to track it. What we can't, what we're not going to be able to support is when there's cash at the door, and so we're not going to be able to track that. So how that actually works from a business perspective, I'll need to work that through, yeah, I'll be interested to kind of understand the mechanics. I mean, obviously, when we're selling tickets in a performing arts, so if you go to Belvoir, for example, and you want to buy a ticket on the night, you turn up, you pay your ticket, it goes through a ticketing system, and you print out a ticket and off you go. I understand that you guys will be slightly different, but there will have to be some control mechanisms so that we can be sure that the amount that's being declared is in fact the amount that's been sold. So that one might need a little bit of work afterwards, just to make sure that we get the balance of that right.
Thanks, Sue, and probably a good time to note that we'll try and get through as many of these as possible. If we don't specifically answer or address your question, we'll definitely come back to you. We're taking a recording of all the questions and feedback we receive. Sue, is it just ticketing revenue covered, or will expenses such as marketing be covered also?
No, so we've just focused on the income side of the ledgers, because when you were planning your marketing, or you're hiring the hall, the venue, or whatever the costs were, you were making those calculations assuming a certain level of box office. So we've focused on the box office because it's far easier for us to quantify what it is that you would have been looking at, by having average ticket price and capacity. We know that most venues will be working on the assumption of about 50 to 65, maybe 70% of the tickets being sold, and that's your business decision. So we've tried to make it as simple and easy to calculate as possible, and we're working on the assumption that when you made the decision to spend that money on marketing, you'd already taken into consideration what you're going to generate from the box office.
Thanks, Sue. And another one. So as an event promoter, my showcases have been reduced to 25% of capacity and ticket sales. Will I be eligible for assistance under this package?
So, sorry, say that again. Someone, I just got distracted by something.
No worries. As an event promoter, my showcases have been reduced to 25% capacity and ticket sales. Will I be eligible for assistance?
Yeah, so again, there'll be this concept of the primary applicant. So and you'll have a relationship with the venue that you were promoting your show into. So the short answer is yes, you're eligible for the money. But what you'll need to do is, before you apply, get agreement on who is going to be the primary applicant. So we're only going to deal with one party at any one time, and you'll have to sign under stat dec that all parties have agreed that you are the primary applicant. We're going to transfer the money into the primary applicant's bank account, and we're going to have a condition that they have to release the money within 30 days of receipt. We're also going to be requesting the names of the other related parties, but we're not going to be reaching in and looking at your contractual and commercial deals that you're doing. So we understand that each of these deals are complex. We're going to be transparent about how much money that we're going to be providing, and we're going to leave it to you guys to work out how you divvy that money up.
Thanks, Sue. A good question here from Tara. What if you're a festival promoter who's utilising multiple non-traditional venues for cancelled or postponed events, like private properties, community halls, local pubs?
Yep. So when this package was designed, we, in essence, festivals aren't in this package at the moment. We know it's a gap, and the amount of money that we've got, because it's going to be pretty well 100% called on because of where we are at the moment. We don't have the capacity to move at the moment. It's a recognised gap, and what I'll be doing is trying to go back and expand the package. And the way that we'll do that is work with festivals and allocate the private land or the private place as an eligible venue for the period of time that you guys are performing. But at the moment, the package doesn't cover you guys.
Thanks, Sue. And I'll try and lump a few of these themes together. So we've got some questions coming in about suppliers and the support they might receive through this.
I need a bit more definition of a supplier.
Let me just go through here. So yeah, I'll come back to that one while I lump a few together. So I think you just touched on this, but it might be worth reiterating for everyone here. There's questions coming in around the accountability process for promoters or producers to ensure they pay through funding to suppliers and sole traders, specifically thinking about music artists, session musicians, and their crews.
Yeah, so so again, I mean, on the one hand, we can't step into the commercial arrangements that have been set up by each of you for each for the gigs, but the absolute intent of this package is to ensure that the flow of money goes through so that people continue to get a source of revenue and a source of income so that they can continue to work. So as far as suppliers are concerned, I think that it's unlikely that they would be considered a related party, but what you will have is a clear transparency about what money the related parties and the primary applicant will be getting. So if they're not handing that money on, then you have grounds to say, well, this money has been received and you're not paying your dues. But we can't, as you can imagine, this is it's a huge, well, it's a small industry, but it's large for the Create team to be able to manage. So we won't be able to kind of step into disputes, but you will have visibility of the money that is flowing through to the venue and to the producers and to the promoters.
Thanks, Sue. Similar questions to previous webinar around the qualification start date of June 26, and whether there's any wiggle room on that, I suppose, and then whether this is relevant to shows and performances that were postponed or just cancelled.
So in the first instance, no, there's not wiggle room. It took a bit of arguing to get it to the 26th of June. So that was the date where the actual shutdown was announced. There was a few days beforehand where there was restricted capacity and we were moving around a bit. But to give you certainty, I settled on the 26th of June because different venues were behaving in different ways than the days before that. But from the lockdown, everyone was in the same boat. As far as whether it should be postponed or cancelled, the package is actually designed to encourage you to postpone and reschedule. So if you've had to, if a show had to be cancelled or postponed during this lockdown period, and you reschedule it into any time up to the 30th of September, and then it gets cancelled again or postponed again, you get to claim twice. So just keep getting the shows back up, keep on committing into it, and hopefully the lockdown will lift. And the idea is that when it lifts, there'll be things ready to go and things for people to see.
Thanks, Sue. I'll try and package these next two questions together if I can. A good question around shows that were planned and scheduled, but tickets hadn't already gone on sale when the cancellation had to occur. Will they be eligible under this package?
You'd have to evidence that they were real. So if they hadn't physically gone on sale, we'd probably be looking at contracts and things like that. I think that really the idea is to have the offering out in the public arena, that these shows are coming up to give people an idea of what's on. I'd need to look at the particular circumstances because obviously you guys work on a much tighter time frame than the performing arts sector. The performing arts sector has pretty well got themselves slated out for the full year, whereas you guys might be working on a tighter time frame. So I'd probably have to have a look at that more closely to understand the specifics, but the general eligibility is around having something on sale and then it not being able to proceed.
So, Sue, a very sort of related question here. I'll just read it out. So many shows might have 100 sales 3 weeks out, but really sell out in the week of the gig. How can people assess this if organisations and promoters stop selling tickets because of the lockdown?
Yeah, so that's why we focus on the capacity and the average ticket price. We're actually not looking at how many tickets you've sold. The same thing has happened in the performing arts, is that when single tickets used to sell well in advance to a show, they're all coming in at the last minute because they're uncertain about whether the show is going to go ahead or not. So that's why we're focused on venue capacity and paying you a percentage of average ticket price of the full of the capacity of the venue, not looking at how far you'd gotten the sales.
Thanks, Sue. And another question, which you've answered previously, but good to reiterate. So will you need to list all of the shows for each venue during the period and the average ticket price per show, or just average in general?
It'll be per performance. So we'll need to see every performance. So this might go to the heart of who you elect to be the primary applicant. If you're a larger organisation or dealing with, a more lots of volume, you might be in a better position to be the primary applicant to manage the administration. But we will accept a single performance from a single primary applicant, or we'll accept 100 performances from a single primary applicant, depending on which way you guys want to cut it.
And a good question here, Sue, from Stephen. Do you class performers who are presenting their own shows in these venues as the promoter or producer, as a large percentage of these will be self-promoted? Yeah,
I'm not. As long as it's an eligible performance in an eligible venue, I'm agnostic about what the terminology. I mean, it's who's taking it. Is their box office risk? And if the answer is yes to that, the eligible music performance, we're saying it's got to be more than 30 minutes, and it's got to have tickets that have gone on sale. So there's got to be evidence that it's a real, that there's a, edges around. There's been business decisions, and there's been, there's edges to what it is that you're doing. But if you're self-promoting into a venue, there's no reason for you not to be able to apply.
Thanks, Sue. And Bevan just wants to clarify, if you've postponed shows to a later date, can you claim on these? And then if they're postponed or the second postponement is cancelled, can you claim twice?
Yep.
That was an easy answer. Sam's...
I'll clarify what we're trying to achieve is, as I said, we're trying to make sure that you continue to try. So there's obviously going to be conditions that just make it that you can't do it if the venue is closed. But if the venue is open, we're going to be providing sufficient compensation that even if you can only let 20 people through the door, we're hopeful that the money that we're providing will give you enough to run that show anyway, because we want the activity to start moving again. Now, if you then, if you've planned it and then it shuts down again, then we'll give you support. But we're only working for the maximum of 6 weeks of the larger percentage under shutdown, and then it goes down to that lower level.
Thanks, Sue. And related to that, Sam's asked a good question here around the rationale behind the percentage being higher for a show that's running at reduced capacity as compared to one that's being cancelled completely. Can you talk us through that again?
Yes, so really, for me, thinking about the way your business model works is that these cancellations are really hard. I totally accept that, but they're kind of sunk and it's kind of happened. What we're trying to do is front load you to continue to keep putting shows on. So we're trying to incentivize you to move forward and make sure that you've got enough. The 50% loading on the average ticket price and capacity is pretty generous. So it should hopefully get you focused forward rather than backwards.
Thanks, Sue. And just one from John. If you're a promoter and have different shows or events at different venues, do you apply in one application or numerous applications for each event?
As long as you're the primary applicant, you can do it all in one. So, there may be. So when I was doing the trawling through everyone's websites over the weekend, I could see Deborah Conway was appearing at about 10 different locations across the state over the next couple of months. Now, it might be a situation where her agent might be the primary applicant for all of those 10 shows, or it might be that each of the venues that she appears in becomes the primary applicant and then the money's paid through to the agent, or it may even be a combination of both. So it's really on a case-by-case basis that you guys have got to work out who's the primary applicant for each performance and then apply under that. And, you know, it'll, you know, yeah, you'll work it out. I say with great confidence.
And Sue, I can just go back to that earlier question around support for crew and suppliers. So people like sound, lighting, staging, video, etc.
Yeah. So, I mean, that really goes back to the contractual relationship that you've got with the venue or the promoter. Whoever it is that has engaged you has an obligation to pay you for the work that you've done, or or for the work that was expected to be done if that money, if there's a sunk amount that's gone into that. So again, we can't get involved in those negotiations, but you will know that they are receiving money, and so that's up to you to ensure that they honour their contractual obligation to you.
Thanks, Sue. And for artists based in New South Wales who had performances interstate that were cancelled or postponed due to the lockdown and border closures, are they eligible under this?
Unfortunately, no. So just kind of stepping it back to the primary purpose of this is to provide economic stimulus and recovery to New South Wales. So we're very focused on the venue and the performance in New South Wales. So theoretically, if a Victorian band was coming in and performing in a venue, then they would be eligible. But if it was a New South Wales band trying to perform in Victoria, they wouldn't. Having said that, definitely at a government level, at a state agency level, as well as a federal government, we can see that there's a gap in the way that companies are being and bands and stuff are being supported, and we're pushing very hard to try and get a system across all the borders and across the country. This is probably the first package that's actually been rolled out that's tried to address the issues that we're all facing at the moment. And you know, I'm really hopeful that it proves to be a success. It actually works, and I'm going to use that to try and leverage an extended time frame of this package to cover until we reach a point of you know, enough vaccination, but also to get it into state as well. But at the moment, it is only New South Wales and only to the 30th of September.
Thanks. So we've got a couple more coming through, and just a reminder that we'll use all of this feedback and questions to pull together a really detailed FAQ if we don't get to your specific query today. An interesting one here from Joel. Many contractual COVID clauses with promoters for suppliers had a 0% payout clause in the event of a COVID cancellation. Under this criteria, it looks like they might get nothing. Is there any way we can address this gap?
Probably retrospectively, no, and I'm kind of stepping into a world that I don't have a lot of information on, but my gut is perhaps not. But one of the things that we will be doing is working with organisations like MIA to look at the way contracts are being drawn up so that there is protection moving forward. As I said, unfortunately we just don't have the capacity or the ability to reach into a business and start negotiating on behalf of individuals. But what we will be doing is trying to influence and change the way that those contracts are being drawn up.
Thanks, Sue. And a really good question and point here from Sophie. We're talking about the information being public. Where will the details of the payments be made publicly available?
So what we'll be doing is, as you saw in that table, is you can see that we're going to be paying the venues under those certain percentages. And then really it's just a case of you knowing what the capacity of the venue is and what the average ticket price is, and you'll be able to work out how much they're receiving at any single time. So it won't be a case of us listing every single payment, but the way in which we're paying it is actually quite transparent.
And so just quickly, do related parties, so the venues, artists and promoters, have to negotiate percentage of the money received before someone is designated as the primary contact? Do you want to just step us through that process again?
Yeah. So we want related parties to nominate who their primary applicant is, and under statutory declaration they will need to say, number one, that they've that all parties agree that they are the primary applicant, and number two, that all related parties have agreed to the payment terms in relation to this payment. The third thing is that we're going to say that they have to release the money within 30 days of receipt. And the last thing that we're going to ask is, the only thing that we're going to ask as far as the contractual relationship is concerned is what the primary applicant, how much of the package they're going to keep. We're not going to ask for the split between the other related parties, but we will have some visibility, and they will be putting this in under statutory declarations, so that if payments aren't flowing through, then there will be a evidence that they said that they would.
Thanks, Sue. And one from Richard here. What if venues have a higher fee which they will not get if shows are cancelled?
Again, that will go to the contractual relationship. That a higher fee would be technically a related party. They're part of the delivery of the eligible performance into the eligible venue. So that's just for you guys to negotiate before you put the application in.
Thanks, Sue. Sorry, I'm just reading the latest one here. This might be a little bit, it's one of those ones that might be hard for me
to... Get my pen ready?
Yeah, get your pen ready. So applying the formula that we've come up with of average ticket price times number of ticket sales, is the number of tickets available determined by the COVID capacity?
No. It's the capacity of the venue. The only caveat around that, and as I said, most of the venues who are on the eligible list have already gone through the life support package application process, and you've already declared that of your venue capacity of XYZ, 80% or 50% or 100% are available for live music activities. So you've already given us some information about what it is, how much capacity you've got. So if there's a vastly different figure that's coming through, we'll be cross-checking and getting some additional information from you to verify that.
Just addressing some comments here. So Jaden, we can contact you following this with other packages through Create. And probably just one final one, Sue, before we move on. It's just around festivals again. Is there any chance that festivals will be classified under this package?
The festival, there are some festivals that can potentially come into the package if they're performing at an eligible venue. And as I said, the sticky point is the big, like the blues fests and stuff like that are lurking out, not lurking, but are out there, is beyond the scope of what this package can deal with. But as far as trying to get a mechanism to give them the same kind of certainty, is that something that we're working on, and we know that it's a gap, and we definitely are working to try and to expand it to cover festivals as well.
And so I think you've covered this one off, but we'll just make sure it's crystal clear. The question from Elise: is there an opportunity to retrospectively renegotiate between supplier and primary applicant to put in a claim that would allow suppliers with that 0% in their contract to receive cover?
Yeah, so again, this is what we can't get, and unfortunately can't get involved with. This is very much going into the business arrangements that were agreed to, by you guys when you signed up to do the gig. So as I said, we're going to have a talk to Mia and try and work out a way of getting a better contractual arrangement in place. I would encourage you personally to talk to the venue or to the promoter or producer who engaged you, because the intent is that you are to still receive some money. But at this stage, we cannot step into any of those contractual arrangements that are in place.
And just one from Richard here, which I think is an easy one for you to answer, Sue. Do you have to get stat decks from all involved, including sound, lighting, crew, musos, etc.?
I would say no. That's going beyond the scope of the package. What you need. what you need to achieve is that the people, so the eligible, you'll remember at the front, at the beginning of the presentation, there are 3 eligible people. There's the eligible venue, there's the producer delivering a performance to an eligible, and then the promoter. So they're kind of the 3 people that we're looking at as eligible to apply. I think then once you get down into who gets what, the best way that I can explain this is that we are a small industry, and everybody knows who the players are. Everybody knows who's going to be getting the money, and it really is a time that we should be pulling together as a sector and making sure that we're supporting the right people. The intent is for the money to flow through. We can control it to a certain degree, but we can't control it all the way down. And so this is a moment as venue owners, as producers and promoters, that we have got to keep this sector alive, and it really will have to be everyone pulling together to get this to work.
Thanks, Joel. I'll definitely take that feedback on board. Sue, we're just talking about how serious this 0% contract issue is. So Sue and I are taking all of these questions and feedback on board. Will we be paying out cancelled or postponed shows that were due to take place already with government funding?
I'm sorry, I don't understand the question.
So will cancelled or postponed shows, I'll try and reword this, that perhaps already received government funding and then were cancelled, will they be eligible under this? For example, Vivid, as a broad example.
I'll need to take that one notice. That's a bit bigger than what I can deal with on the fly. The short answer is no, because you're not really, if Vivid's not considered in the calculations of this package. It's a festival. If they're performing in eligible venues, then we would have to look at that. But I think, I'd need to take that one offline and talk to you guys directly over that, just to work out exactly what you're talking about.
Thanks, Sue. Sam, we'll be in touch on that one. Conscious of time here, so we'll just thank you so much for all of the feedback and questions. As I said, if we didn't answer your specific question here, we'll definitely include it in our FAQ document and update our website shortly. Just one additional point from my end before I give you out our contact details. The $75 million package for our sector is incredible. It's tremendous, but it is a small part of a much broader New South Wales government stimulus package. So there's a plethora of support on offer from the New South Wales and Commonwealth government. I just want to reiterate that. And for businesses, everyone should be looking at Service New South Wales and talking to someone at Service New South Wales to see what else you may be eligible for. And for individuals looking for support, the best place to go there is Services Australia. So once again, thanks for your time. As I said earlier, if we didn't answer your specific question, we'll try and answer it in our FAQs. If your query falls outside of this, or you need any additional information or have any additional feedback or questions, please don't hesitate to contact Sue and I at that sector.support@createnewsouthwales.gov.au, and we'll get back to you. So thanks again, everyone. I think this was hugely beneficial for all of us, and hopefully you got something out of it. As I said, applications open this Friday, and we'll get the guidelines and FAQs up as soon as we can, so you've all got full transparency. Thanks, guys.